All right, this is my article analysis presentation. The article that I chose to do my presentation on is Decoding the DNA of the Toyota Production System by Stephen Spear and H.K. Bowen. Why would anyone even want to decode the DNA of Toyota's production system? That's a good question. They would want to because of Toyota's mastery of the production system itself. They're top tier. Nobody comes close, really. And they're going to want to try to attempt to copy and mimic what they do so that they can be as successful as Toyota. Many have tried and failed. They come from all different areas. It's not just auto manufacturing. It could be aerospace, consumer products, metals processing, and industrial products. How do people attempt to mimic? Toyota's actually very open about their processes, so anyone can kind of go and tour the facility as far as other people looking to improve their manufacturing processes. They're allowed to go see what Toyota does, what machines they use, how everything's set up. They can see the whole process for themselves, so it's not a secret. It also tells of another method that they use to mimic. Kanban cards, they're a super important aspect in Toyota's functionality. It was successfully introduced at Toyota and has since been implemented at many other companies. And that's just like one way that people try to mimic their success, but Kanban won't specifically make your manufacturing process greater than everyone else's. There's much more to it that made Toyota's that way. Why is it difficult to mimic? As said before, there are very few that have actually successfully mimicked Toyota's manufacturing success, and so we kind of want to know where did they go wrong. Spear and Bowen, the authors, point out that it couldn't have been a cultural reason that makes it difficult to mimic. As far as they know, in the 40 plants that they studied over 4 years, they're completely around the globe, so many different cultures within the workers that are employed. So the fact that there's standards held at nearly all the locations shows that it couldn't be that for why it's difficult to mimic. Competitors are focused too closely on like the physical processes and machines that they see within the production. I speak on that based on people going to the plant and only seeing what's in front of them, not really thinking about the complex ideas that might go into the success itself, not just the physical things. That was another reason the authors pointed out that it could be difficult to mimic. During visits to Toyota, competitors were entirely missing the point, and that's why I included these two images here where the point is obviously being completely missed, but I just thought those were kind of fun. The author's thoughts about all this. They think that the true answer lies within Toyota's flexibility and adaptability within their production system, which I think is a very good point. Every activity and process is being improved upon around the clock. Kaizen's super evident within their manufacturing methods. Kaizen is just constant improvement. Everything they do looks for improvement. The scientific method is also very evident, as they have to use it in every single improvement decision that they make. And the scientific method continued as defined on Google. It's a method of procedure that has characterized natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypotheses. I have kind of like a general 6 steps of the scientific method right here, where 1 would be make an observation. Step 2 is ask a question based on that observation. Step 3 is form a hypothesis or a testable explanation. Step 4, make a prediction based on that hypothesis. Step 5 is test the prediction. And step 6 is use your results to either make a new hypothesis or a further improvement or prediction. Toyota really makes an effort to ingrain this type of method into every single employee, so there's just second nature to them at the end of the day. They don't really have to think about how to do these steps in order to improve. The scientific method in use. During any improvements or when defining specifications for a certain process, employees are required to set hypotheses that can be tested when carrying out those specifications. This means that they essentially work and solve problems at the same time. It hasn't always been that way at Toyota, but kind of happened over the last few decades, and it was kind of a subconscious move. At the same time, they didn't really understand that it had happened that way. Using this approach to everything is also responsible for a portion of the healthy work environment that Toyota's employees are subject to. The article specifically calls it a command and control environment that we're trying to avoid. It's what you see in most other companies. Instead, here at Toyota, at Toyota, employees are given a sense of value and pride through the roles that they play in improving the processes that they work on. Everyone has a role in improvement there, which gives them, it kind of stimulates each employee. It seems almost like a friendly classroom environment there. They all have kind of a common goal to reach, and they work together to reach that goal. And sometimes that involves helping each other out, and sometimes you might figure out an improvement on your own. But if you do need help, there is somebody to reach out to, like a mentor or a teacher. That's why it kind of seems like that classroom environment. Toyota's secret. And when it comes down to it, the authors came up with 4 rules through the research. Toyota's success can be credited to the following 4 rules. Rule 1, all work shall be highly specified as to content, sequence, timing, and outcome. Rule 2, every customer-supplier connection must be direct, and there must be an unambiguous yes or no way to send request and receive response. Rule 3, the pathway for every product and service must be simple and direct. Rule 4, any improvement must be made in accordance with the scientific method under the guidance of a teacher at the lowest possible level in the organization. All of these processes are required to have built-in tests that show failure as soon as it occurs. And this helps with fast response time, which is kind of what makes Toyota so responsible. And just like the top of their class, pretty much. Is their quick responses, quick changes or improvements needed. Rule 1, how people work. Let's dive into it a little bit. Example of typical approach to install a seat would be take 4 bolts from a box, take those and a wrench to the car, tighten each bolt, and log the work done on the computer and wait for the next. If there are any new installers, then the previously trained or veteran worker in that area usually does the training. So what's the issue with that? To the normal person, it kind of sounds like appropriate action. That doesn't sound too bad, but in reality, it allows for significant amounts of variation among everyone. Any new or old operator may do steps differently, and I put this fun picture here where people might see blue, some people might see white. It's just, there's a difference between everyone. So that's where variation comes in, and that we're trying to eliminate that. Rule 1 continued. How Toyota has their seats installed. This would be a more proper way. The bolts are tightened exactly the same way every time. Each turn and torque at which it must be tightened is specified prior to doing the job. They're tightened in the same order every time. There's never a change in that, so never like front bolts, back bolts. And then like changing it to back bolts, front bolts, you do it the exact same way. If it's front to back, then you do it front to back every time. They're tightened within a given time interval as well. Intervals for every step it takes. There's marks on the floor, actually, as described in the article, that each employee knows as to signify like time checkpoints along the line at which they're supposed to be done with a certain step. And if they're behind at a certain point, then they ask for help from a supervisor, and it's fixed right away. If it can't be, then there needs to be an adjustment, and that's another helpful cue just for Toyota, is that if they're not lined up on the marks correctly, then there needs to be a change. Due to these defined sequence of tasks, a new worker may be trained by an experienced worker in the field with little variation. There are specific people for each station at Toyota for this, however, which helps further. Rule 1 seemingly makes workers test hypotheses without trying. Simply doing any activity according to its sequence tests whether or not the person doing the task is capable of doing it correctly, and if completing the activity does in fact reach the goal intended. Those are the two hypotheses that it tests at the same time, pretty much. One, that the person or machine can do the activity as specified, and two, if the activity is done as specified, the good or service will be defect free. Yeah, so as I said previously, they kind of work and make improvements at the same time. How people connect, Rule 2. What is Rule 2? The first rule covers individual work, so this one works on how people interact with each other when needed. The authors describe the rule of interactions as every connection must be standardized and direct, unambiguously specifying the people involved, the form and quantity of the goods and services to be provided, the way requests are made by each customer, and the expected time in which the request will be met. The overall aim of Rule 2 is to get rid of gray zones or just any confusion that might be happening. Everything is super direct and to the point. Yes or no's are clear, and there's no confusion. So that's why we have Rule 2. Rule 2 hypotheses are that, well, according to the article, are that customers' requests will be for goods and services in a specific mix and volume, or that the supplier can respond to customers' requests. So signs of a problem based on these hypotheses is that responses don't keep pace with requests, and the supplier is idle and waiting for a request. So if any of those problems occur, then there needs to be change or improvement made. Continuing with Rule 2, a helpful tool of Rule 2 is a Kanban card. This is where it comes into play, or an and-on cord. And-on cords are essentially a rope that runs the length of the line. At any point throughout the line, someone can pull on it and stop the whole process if needed. Just make sure there's immediate response for everyone, no matter what, if it's needed. And then, as stated by the authors, the connections are as smooth as the passing of the baton in the best Olympic relay teams. I think that's kind of a cool way to just imagine the overall superiority of Toyota's manufacturing process. It's kind of cool. The Olympics are the best of the best, so their baton passing is going to be the smoothest, and so I think that's just a cool comparison to Toyota. There's niche supervisors. That's another way that Rule 2 is followed. Toyota has many supervisors for every area. This ensures that a problem becomes a certain person's. What I mean by that is when something is everyone's problem, it becomes no one's problem. That was a quote taken from the article that I thought was super important in trying to understand Rule 2. Toyota makes it somebody's problem so that there is a fix as fast as possible. Limiting variance in communication is another big one. The goal is to be direct and unambiguous in all communications, as previously specified. The scientific method works best with yes or no results. That's why it has to be unambiguous. No gray zones, no confusion. Responding to requests within a specific time also limits variation. And then any struggling worker has to ask for help at once. That's just one rule that they have. If they struggle, you immediately ask for help and a supervisor helps you. If the problem still occurs and the supervisor cannot get you back on time within the specified time frame, then the supervisor reaches out for further help so that the whole bigger picture can be looked at, figure out what's wrong. Rule 3, how the production line is constructed. At Toyota, they designed the production line with no forks or loops as to just keep the line straight. They don't want to negatively impact the supply chain with any unneeded turns or turnarounds. Everything follows a single path that lacks any change unless the entire thing needs to be changed, in which case it can be, but otherwise everything's stationary and stays put. When following Rule 3 methods, goods and services travel to a specific person who is ready for the arrival, not just to anyone, so that the prepared person might take the immediate next steps. It's just quicker that way. If there's a failure for someone to be where they're needed, then it's a cue that something needs remodeling within the system. They seem to follow a keep it simple, stupid method, in my opinion, as they are all about limited variation at every step. It just seems like the simpler the better to me as far as how they run things. These carefully laid out specifications that every process has there ensure that a hypothesis is tested for every action, and if the hypothesis is wrong, then an adjustment is made, which is, I think, their secret to why they're so good at Kaizen is every single moment of every day they're just constantly improving or looking for what can be improved or looking for a cue that something needs improvement. It's nonstop all the time. Rule 4, how they can improve. There are forward efforts taken by Toyota to teach improvement strategies, among other things. They try to never assume that a person will be able to learn just based on their own sole personal experience. The overall message of the rule is that before any change is made for improvement, that a person must be under the supervision of a teacher and use the scientific process that they've been ingrained with. Improvements are made by the workers themselves, but the supervisor provides knowledge or wisdom needed for each worker to complete that improvement. It kind of helps them just to feel a sense of pride or value in themselves too, which helps. Different from other companies, Toyota is, anyway, different from other companies in the sense that punishment or yelling isn't their first reaction in response to a mess up. Instead, it's just trying to figure out what needs to be changed or improved. They take a quick initiative to help the person make a change or improve, and if that doesn't work, the situation might be reassessed completely. Just maybe that person isn't actually capable of doing the job correctly, or the process itself needs changing. Toyota overall, the output of an ideal person, according to Toyota employees, or a group of people or a machine, is that the output must be defect-free. It has to be able to be delivered at one request at a time, just a batch size of one. The output can be supplied on demand in the version requested. The output can be delivered immediately. The output can be produced without wasting any materials, labor, energy, or other resources. And the output can be produced in a work environment that is safe physically, emotionally, and professionally for every worker. Toyota is super versatile and flexible based on the way that they expect to run into problems that they will need to find a quick solution for. The 4 rules really allow them to get after these issues as fast as possible, and I think that's what separates them from everyone. Everything that Toyota does is done to very definite specifications or sequences, and everyone has the same idea for an ideal production system, and they all work together to achieve that image. They use this common image to make the experience better for everyone. How this article relates to class. I think Toyota relates to many aspects of class that we've gone over, as they simply use management strategies the best, like ISH shows. I would like to focus on relating it specifically back to 3 modules in our class though, however. One from Chapter 7, which is Process Strategy. The next would be Layout Strategy, Chapter 9, and Supply Chain Management from Chapter 11. How it relates to Process Strategy for Chapter 7. The immediate relation that came to mind is that this is the Toyota uses the product focus strategy. They have a large quantity of products with small varieties, so they just kind of implement that into their production. The slides from this chapter also mention that less broadly skilled operators are found in the product focus category, and I think this relates heavily as something that Toyota does differently is having many supervisors for a specific area, so that all issues go to a specific person instead of just to someone. There's a specific person for each issue, and that allows for quick response or quick turnaround time on it, which is very nice. The slides also mention that standardized job instructions occur. I find this to be the most important aspect in Toyota's successes, as everything is standardized or specified or sequenced down to every single turn of a nut and bolt. It's amazing, actually. I know that Toyota is a master of the process strategy. They meet or exceed customer requirements, meet costs and managerial goals, and their use of the process strategy has long-term effects on their efficiency, production flexibility, cost, and quality. And those are just kind of requirements of the process strategy, and Toyota definitely meets them all, so I know that they use it. It also relates to layout strategy from Chapter 9. Being that all activities at Toyota are done using carefully specified sequenced events, layout strategy within Toyota is super important. As previously mentioned in discussion of Rule 3, the layout in Toyota is a straight path where everything follows just that one path. It never changes unless the entire thing needs to be changed, in which case it can be. All goods or services travel to a specified person. There's also a strong relation to assembly line balancing, which is a part of layout strategy. Every action is specified down to the time at Toyota, meaning there are carefully calculated cycle times, among other things like numbers of workstations or efficiency, and those are all keys to balancing the assembly line. So I think that's super important to Toyota's success. Continuing with the layout strategy, I'd also like to link Toyota to layout strategy through an improvement that was made at one specific Toyota facility. This is just an example that did occur in the past. Keep in mind a well-made layout strategy allowed for the excess room within a plant. Ace and Siki, forgive me if I said that wrong, was a Toyota group company that was able to use excess space within one of its plants to make a mattress assembly line pretty much. To this day, it's now grown significantly, and it's just added revenue for that specific plant now, and because of a well laid out layout strategy, they were able to capitalize on some extra area that they had just lying around in their plant, which is cool, super cool. Supply chain management, Chapter 11. The best relation between supply chain management and what was learned about Toyota in this article is to relate it to Rule 2. All connections between customers, workers, or suppliers are straightforward with yes or no responses. And this rule allows for the connections in the supply chain to communicate as efficiently as possible. Kanban cards also play a super important role in just efficient communication within the supply chain. That's why it's been adopted everywhere else too. Like many other companies use Kanban cards now just because they're important in it. So the relevance to today. Obviously, I think Toyota has mass amounts of relevance to today, and I think this article does too. To this day, Toyota's top leader in their efficient manufacturing, and I think Kaizen can be credited with a lot of this, as it is non-stop improvement within Toyota. Like, I cannot stress it enough, they always are improving. So yeah, that's definitely relevant. As long as each employee and every supervisor is dedicated to following the 4 rules that I've talked about in this presentation, as well as implementing the scientific method within those 4 rules, there will definitely be improvement. For this article to be irrelevant, I think, to the business practices of today, the very foundation of all manufacturing processes probably have to change, or there'd have to be a massive discovery in production processes that just change everything. That'd be the only way for this to not be relevant today. I'd like to continue on this as, in fact, that the article's title itself suggests that it has relevance today. When it says decoding the DNA, it's suggesting that within the article they break down complex issues for others to understand and study, meaning like it is information wanted by someone today. So I think it literally states in its title that it's relevant. The very purpose of the article is to explain to anyone curious about high-level manufacturing processes just why Toyota is so dominant, and it gives them the means to go about implementing Toyota's rules for themselves, which is cool, super relevant. We want to decode the DNA because of how successful in their business practices today Toyota is. It shows relevance right there. That's exactly why we would want to decode it. We want to implement it in today's society because they're so dominant right now. So 100% relevance to today. And I just want to thank you for listening to my presentation.